I was able to see things other people weren't. And you kind of grow up being conditioned to what you're seeing is in your imagination, but it never went away. So I just always kind of hung with it and kept it quiet because it was taboo at the time. And then it became premonitions. So I would see things before they would happen. When the mediumship really started kicking in, where the deceased information was coming in my mind, but I really didn't know how to compartmentalize it at that time.
Is this a gift or a curse?
Both. I always say it's a gift and a curse.
Bob and I are joined today by Tara Grossi, a psychic medium, healer, and spiritual counselor with nearly 3 decades of experience helping others heal through her gifts of spirit. Tara is known for her grounded, compassionate approach to spirit communication, intuitive readings, and healing work, helping people find peace, clarity, and continued connection with loved ones beyond the physical world. Learn how Tara found, strengthened, and protects her gifts while also being a mother, wife, and business owner on today's episode of Beyond the Bottom Line.
I'm super excited about this conversation because I know very little about you, but she seems to be absolutely enamored by everything you do.
I know, I'm like so excited.
Yeah, she's so jazzed up about it. So I'm secondarily pumped up because I think you're going to talk about a lot of cool things I've always wondered about and just never did anything about or
Okay.
learned more about. So I'm going to be the newbie,
Okay.
and then you guys can talk shop and let me ask some might be ignorant questions, but I'm sure there are folks that don't know all the details about how this works. But,
Absolutely.
maybe you should introduce yourself, Tara.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm medium Tara Grossi. I've been reading for almost 25 years now here in the Northeast PA, outside of Philadelphia, and up in upstate New York.
Yeah. And so you do that full time now.
I do.
And you are a psychic medium or just a medium?
A psychic medium.
Yes.
So I have no more for the mediumship, but I do the psychic work as well.
Yes.
What's the difference there?
So the mediums can do both. They can talk to spirit. That's the mediumship where we're talking to the deceased. And psychics typically will predict the future, see the future, predict forehand, what's happening. Usually psychics don't do mediumship. They can do a little bit, but mediums are known for that direct channel with the deceased.
Okay.
So that's pretty much a big base of my clientele is mediumship.
That's heavy stuff.
I have
It is.
so many questions.
You came to the right place.
I'm just going to start asking.
Yes.
How did you know you had this gift and when?
Probably the age of 4. So I've had it my whole life. I was able to see things other people weren't. And we're talking back in the 70s. So I'm going to date myself right now. And so then it was imaginary friends. So people that I saw, things that I was talking about, everybody just, oh, your imaginary friend. So you kind of grow up being conditioned to what you're seeing is in your imagination, but it never went away. So I just always kind of hung with it and kept it quiet because it was taboo at the time. People don't talk about it. We didn't have the internet. So our world hadn't evolved into that metaphysics in upstate New York. Now, if I had gone farther, there's a little town called Lilydale. I would have blended right in with Lilydale, which is a whole community of mystics and mediums. And the whole thing was designed back by the Fox sisters who did the table tapping back in the day. So that's a whole other,
I don't know
Yeah.
what that
lesson.
is.
Yeah.
But the whole town is psychics and mediums. And we can talk about that a little bit too.
Okay. Okay. So age 4, start having imaginary friends and they never went away.
Correct. And then it became premonitions. So I would see things before they would happen. So that was very strong all the way through my high school years, early 20s. The premonitions would come through. And then it was probably mid 20s when the mediumship really started kicking in, where the deceased information was coming in my mind, but I really didn't know how to compartmentalize it at that time. And even some, what I would say, probably hauntings of things like doors would slam open, things would happen a lot as I was in my 20s. And I didn't really understand what was happening until I connected to Lilydale.
Okay. So I'm
Go ahead.
thinking.
I
I
she's
know.
got a haunted chair. I feel bad. I can hear her.
Oh, is that sorry?
No,
you're
Sorry, I
good.
won't move it.
Were your parents, did they have any gifts or aunts or grandparents or no one in your family?
No, not that I can trace it to.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Is that normal? Do you see some people that pass it down?
It is more common for generational.
Okay.
So I have not been able to trace it to somebody. I would say I have people in my family that are intuitive, but not to the degree of where I'm at.
I've heard of some instances where kids have gotten, like, electrocuted and things, and then suddenly they have these gifts, like, if they have a kind of an electrical
Mhm.
experience as a child, they can this can happen? Did anything like that happen to you, or you just think
You
you
know
were
what?
born with it?
It very well could have, but I feel like I was born with it because I have a lot of memories from about the age of 4 that were pretty bizarre, and not just an imagination. But the electrical is interesting. As my skills developed in my 20s and early 30s, lights. Every time I turn on a light, I blow a bulb. I would graduated from light bulbs to wall switches. So then my husband would have to change out the wall switches. So my energy became very strong with electrical things. I worked in a hair salon. The hair dryers used to blow up when I would use them all the time because my energy just blew up. So I go through a lot of hair tools. We go through a lot of light switches in our house. So electric is definitely my
I really, first off, I don't want you to touch a single thing in this studio.
I know, that's why I'm not
Don't
touching
touch the
it.
mic.
No. No, I'll blow
Right.
up
Second of all,
everything.
you need to get yourself a clap on.
I know, I know. We go through a
Wow.
lot of things, expensive things.
Yeah.
Even vehicles have been challenging with electronics for me. I just
Wow.
have really bizarre.
I've heard of this though. This
Yeah.
is not uncommon
Mhm.
where, on a Zoom call or something, technology is hard to connect with people that way. I've
So
heard of
that's all I
this.
can think of is EVPs, right?
A little bit different than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I should let you ask the questions, but
EVPs, you're connecting to spirit. You're using a device, a tool to see the energy of a deceased person in a room, a ghost.
okay.
This is more energy that's kinetically coming through me. So,
Mm.
something really bizarre is for me, if I sleep with my head north, it's like plugging your phone into the wall. I charge to the magnetic poles, so I am wired all night long. So I can't sleep with my head facing north in my room. I know that
Wow.
sounds weird, but it's very true. I
Well,
will.
because the earth has energy.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So people that are highly sensitive and more intuitive will have more challenge sleeping at night when their head is facing north,
Interesting.
at
Oh,
least
you're blowing my mind. So does this is this a gift or a curse?
both. I always say it's a gift and a curse
Hmm.
because there are so many things that help so many people on a
Mhm.
gift level, but the physical things that happen to me can be a curse as well. Just attachments, energy, things like that.
Yes. I don't know where I want to take this conversation because it's so many
Yeah.
places.
Well, I feel like this is a topic that I always want to believe more deeply about, and then I feel like I'm a math guy and I tactile, I gotta see it and all
Sure.
stuff. But I think everybody has had some things happen when you talk about childhood and seeing imaginary
Mhm.
friends. And at what point did you come to the realization like, no, that's not my imagination, it's something more?
When I
Because you
had
must have felt like an odd one out, right? And
I
yeah.
did, and it's really interesting because some of my friends will say once my mediumship developed and social media came out, and Facebook came out in 2009 or 8, and they're like, "Oh, that explains it," when they found out what I did because, like, as a child, you always saw things or said things, and I don't remember it, but they do, so it's funny how
Mm,
my friends remember me as connecting spiritually. I just don't remember that. Isn't
Wow.
that
Because it's
interesting?
all you knew.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you did learn that you had this, who was the first person you talked to about it?
I would have been in my 20s. I At that time, it would have been my ex-boyfriend and his family
Okay.
because he had lost a brother and things were happening really strongly at that time. He had passed away and just a lot of things were happening. And so I was able to talk about that and we were witnessing that. So that was probably the beginning of talking about it more. And that's when the premonitions were really kicking up more for that. But little things like he passed away, he was in North Carolina. I walked in the door, I got a call, he had passed, and I walked up the steps, and as soon as I walked in the space, I could feel like I walked through this cold. I knew I walked through him, and then when I came home earlier, I had played the answering machine. This we're going back in time here, and I could, I heard the message that he passed, but it was a couple hours later when I left the house and came back. And I felt the cold, and then I'm standing in the doorway, and the machine, you could hear click, click, and it repeated the message 3 times that he passed away. So, after I had erased it. So, that was kind of, when really things were getting wild when it came to energy and
Mhm.
spirit.
Yeah.
Were you grateful? Like, did you feel like a sense of relief? Oh, this is starting to make sense and this is something I want to take on? Or did you feel like it was scary?
I felt a little relief because I knew I was getting validation
Mhm.
for all the things that I had felt and connected to for so many years, but I also didn't know what to do with it at the same time
Yeah.
because it was just a time
Yeah.
and I also have a very religious family. I have a cousin that's a deacon. So it's like he's the angel and I'm the devil in the family. So,
Mm,
you're dealing kind of trying to balance, your own religion, how you were raised and respecting your family and then having this gift that they can't see as a gift. So that's always been very challenging as
mm.
well.
Tough
Yeah.
spot.
It
Yeah.
is.
Let's talk about that. So, what is your view on that then now?
I feel like over the years from doing this, there have been many times where things have come at me and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then every time I had that thought in my head and I couldn't stop it, it just kept coming and coming. Something great would happen or something, you would do something that would really be so helpful to somebody. So you knew you were in the right path. You knew you were going in the right direction. And then you'd get the pull from the family, like, this is against the Bible. You shouldn't be doing this. And, so you had that. But I feel like because I connect globally around the world, I have learned a lot because every religion and culture is different. And as Christians here in the United States, we are raised and taught one way. But when you start to learn other countries, other cultures, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's the Quran or the Torah, however I'm learning, I have to learn about the country and the culture because when people die, it's different than how it is in the US. And
Mm,
in the Middle East, the men get more shares than the women, and there's like a whole process. And so you start to learn what they believe when people pass away on the other side and how we believe it is different. I mean, we do share some common biblical like Moses and Abraham, but there's also things that we don't share. So, like Catholicism is saints, and we pray
Hmm.
to saints, and other religions in the US don't. So, I think becoming more diverse as a whole helped me stay a little bit more center because I could take a little bit from all the different practices around the world and kind of blend it. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
That was tough to try to
yeah.
be open and understand that too, because it's not just one way. There's many ways.
Mm.
And in your experience, getting communication from people who have passed from multiple different cultures, religions, backgrounds all over the globe, is there a consistent story coming, a consistent feeling? Like, is it love and light on the other side?
It is. So I tend to work more in the light than the
Mhm.
dark.
Because there is both.
There is, and I've been attacked by the dark. So I've had experience with it. When you think you're protected, sometimes you're not. But the thing that is the most common, it doesn't matter what language. So if I'm talking to somebody who speaks a foreign language predominantly, or their loved one did not speak a word of English, my guides will translate it to me in English so that when I'm speaking to my client, I can speak to them, with what the spirit is saying to me. But it's one place. I'm not going to separate places. So when I'm in my mind space, in my head, looking at the spirit in heaven, I'm at the same place for all religion, all cultures. It's global. It's a global space. We call it the Summerland mediumship. We call it the Summerland is typically where you would go. There's layers and levels of heaven, but level 3, kind of the summer land, is usually where you see 90% of your spirits. I've seen up to 5 levels. They get a little more holier and garbed and grail as you go up a little higher, but most of the time we're at 3 and they'll come down to 1. So, we'll talk about this for a minute. So, when we're reading, the spirit will come down to this level. They'll present themselves as a whole because when we pass, we're not a human. We now become an energy of light. So we don't have arms, legs, feet. So I don't read there because it wouldn't make sense to my client. Spirit will appear as level 1 is how you look. So I can describe to you what the person's wearing, if they wear glasses, what their hair color is like, how they look. So you know I have that spirit with me. And then they'll talk the way they would present themselves here on the earth. So it would make sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a big thing. So that's how I read a lot. And then when I'm done, they kind of go back up. But there are times I will read at that level because we all go through a life review when we cross over. And that's part of a spiritual healing. It's our day of reckoning, and spirits can choose to heal at that point. So sometimes they'll heal and they'll have a message that may be different than how they would have felt on the earth, because when you're in heaven, you don't hate. You don't have that anger. When you hear people say, "Oh, they'd be rolling over in their grave." No. I mean, when they come to level 1, yes. But when they're at their state of the Summerland, level 3, no. Does that make sense, or have I lost
Yeah,
you?
A little bit. Yeah,
it makes
I
perfect
have a
sense to me.
question though. When you say I don't read, or I sometimes read at that level
Mhm,
or this
mhm.
level, what does that mean? I read at?
Oh, I'm sorry. So, when the spirit's coming in, if they're coming at level 1, they're coming in how you would know them, their inflection of their voice, their dictation of what the things that they would say to
Mhm.
you. So you recognize that. So that's typically how I'm reading to a client. So if I'm talking to their deceased loved one, I'm connecting to a level that you could relate to.
Okay.
If read them at 3, they're a healed spirit and evolved. So the messages you would say, that doesn't sound like my dad, or that doesn't sound like my
Oh,
aunt.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I
Okay.
have to make sure I start these
So the
reads
closer or the higher they rise those levels, the more the transition of their spirit, I guess.
correct.
Is that
And that's through
okay?
the life review part, which is a whole
But to read them, to connect with them, do you do something, do you do the same thing each time, or do you do a different, I don't know, procedure, process to read at a different level, or is it just however they want to reach out?
I have the
This a dumb
same. No,
question? I
no,
feel
it
like that
isn't
might be a dumb
actually.
question. Okay.
So Lilydale, my mentors, had taught me always to pray before I read. So I say a prayer for everybody. But that also helps me because I work with not only the spirit, but my spirit guides, because they're the ones that have to translate things. They're the ones that have to kind of connect. So that's where I learned my filter. So if I'm at the grocery store, I'm on a cruise ship, back in the day, I can sit here with both of you and not look at your spirits, because I set an intention with my guides. If I'm not praying, I don't want to be an open filter to everyone's
Yeah.
garbage or
Yeah,
grief or anything.
yeah.
So I was able to control that. It took years to practice that so I can control that. So my prayer is opening up with an intention of protection for you and me.
Yep.
And then that's when my guides open up and bring the spirit to me.
I'm thinking about the Claires.
Okay.
How many Claires are there? 5,
There's
7?
5 or slash 7, depends on,
Say Claire's?
yeah,
Claires.
the Claires.
The Claires.
So you have your, like
I'm
I want her to
so
talk
not
about
in,
the Claires.
yeah, I'm
well,
so
as a
uneducated
matter of
on all
fact,
that stuff.
I'm going to be teaching that in January, all about the Claires in at the Abington Library. I'm going to go the first Tuesday for 3 weeks, and I'm going to do, like, kind of a it's free. I'm just saying donation to the library. So I'm going to teach about the Claires, actually, and teaching people how to tap into a little mini workshop on that. So
Oh, I wanna go.
yeah. So that will be the first Tuesday, the first 3 Tuesdays in January from 6 to 7 at the Abington Library. So if you want to learn more about
Cool.
all of that, because that's a whole
I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
so
be
there's clairvoyant, which is
yep.
to be able to
okay.
see.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
Hmm.
clairaudient, to be able to
Here.
hear.
Yep.
Clairsentient,
Hmm.
which is just a knowing.
Hmm.
Those are the only ones I know off the top of my
You
head.
can taste, you can smell, you feel,
The
like there's a
senses.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And those are what you develop in your mediumship.
Okay.
And so which ones are most predominant for you?
It started out with my clairvoyant, then my audience, I could hear, but now I have all 5 of my senses pretty equal. So I can't say I have one dominant
Mm.
over the other. They're all pretty equal for me. So an example is I'm reading somebody and I'm reading their spirit. I will see them, I will hear them, I can smell, and I can also pick up how they passed. So I may feel if they have a heart attack, I feel it. If they have cancer, I'll see, like, the cells. So it depends. If they have breast cancer, I can feel it in my chest. So
Oh, wow.
I can pick up, and so I can tell you how they passed so that it's really your spirit.
You've done that for me, and it was funny, not funny, kind of funny. You read my grandmother and you started coughing and you said, "Oh, was she a heavy smoker?" And I said, "Yeah." And you had a smoker's cough. It was
Mhm.
like a wheeze.
And that's the stuff you call the curse, because when you're physically ingesting this all day long, at the end of the day, it's exhausting. And the older I get, I think the more exhausting it does get. But you will feel the lung, the pulmonary, you will feel the heart, you will feel a lot of things that come through your body all day long. Or an example would be a suicide and somebody jumps
Uh,
off a building. Like, you're on that trip with that spirit, and the impact is not to get gross, but the impact is felt. Or if they shoot themselves, my head'll hurt really bad, or whatever the nature is,
Oh my
I
gosh.
feel it. And so, when you're doing that back to back to back all day, it's a lot of energy and it does take a toll. And I don't think
Yeah.
people realize what the physical toll is to the medium who does pick up all of that energy.
Not many people know this. My wife knows this, but as a financial planner, right? You're like, where's this going, right? So we spend a lot of time getting to know our clients much more deeply than their account levels or
Sure.
values. It's about their life. And a lot of those conversations, eventually somebody's getting sick or dying or passed away. And she knows that like it's hard to come home at 6 o'clock and turn that off and go back to I can't if I was at that level, that's gotta be a are you happy that you are in this position?
Yes, because I help more people, and I think at the end of the day, the people that you do help, it is worth it. I feel
Good.
like it's just I don't search for it. It just comes to me. So I know I'm in the right path. I know I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing. But it is, when you're seeing things and you're sitting there with a grieving parent who lost a child, that is I not that you could rank death, but I would say a parent who loses a child is probably the hardest to kind of navigate through. For You're sitting there feeling the grief of the parent. You're sitting there feeling the emotional and mental state of the child, especially if it's an accident, suicide, doesn't matter. And then it's the older couple that have been married for 50 years and then you lose one spouse.
Yeah.
Those are really heavy emotional situations to kind of go through. And then of course anything after that is still heavy. But it is a lot, and you do feel a lot, and I've learned, because I keep myself scheduled back to back, so I could read 8 people in a day. So, you walk out the door, and I schedule, like, 15 minutes in between, so she walks out, the next person walks in, and I just do a little cleansing with myself, shut it off, and then I can go on and give you 110% of my attention without thinking about the
Yeah.
person who just took
Mhm.
their life. You have to
Yeah.
kind of
Tara, where do you like, how do you charge your batteries?
Yeah, that was the question for
Yeah.
me.
Did you have a hot tub or something?
I
That works for me.
I actually do, I actually do.
Nice.
I It's that energy, I'm telling you, I am wired different. I don't get depressed, I'm just wired. You'd think I would, pulling in everyone else's depression in all day long. I don't know, it's just a
Do you
divine.
is there a distinction between your feelings and personality and everything, like you versus all the stuff you're channeling?
Oh, yes, because when I'm channeling, I'm in a state,
Yeah.
so I won't
Okay.
remember a lot of what I'm saying. I'm listening, but I have to be careful sometimes to pay attention to filter some things out. Sometimes you just have to be careful, and then I just shut it down, and I just try not to hold it in, because the more I hold that energy and the more it physically impacts me.
So you become like a channel. So basically, you're not using your own energy fully necessarily to be doing this work. You are a channel for that energy to move through you in a
Both,
sense.
both, because I have to
Yeah.
use my own energy. So if I sit with somebody, the one thing that I have learned over the years is if somebody's depressed or they're on medication and I'm reading their spirit and then I'm reading them, I'll yawn a lot and I feel so bad, but I could read somebody and yawn the whole way through. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And it took me a long time to realize it's the depression of the person sitting there, what they're going through emotionally. And I'm pulling all that in. And I feel horrible, but it's just my body reacting to the energy. And then if I have that all day long, by the end of the day, I'm spent,
Yeah.
but you can't predict who's coming in and who's depressed or not, or feeling when I say depressed, the heaviness of the grief,
The grief.
Yeah.
Let's talk about grief. Everybody experiences it at different times in their lives. Do you see them experience a difference after they've spoken with you? And like, how do you feel like people process grief?
I feel like everybody processes grief differently. Again, it depends on the situation. It depends on, again, if it's a child, if it's a loved one for a million years, if it's an ex-husband. That I've had situations where people have been divorced and then the ex-wife will be there because the father's passing away and the kids, like everything's so different. But I
Mhm.
do feel I think the part that makes it worth it is when you hear people come back and say, how much it helps them. Or I have a lot of therapists that refer their clients to me. So to me, those are the things in my mind that I'm like, I know I'm going in the right path, because to have a therapist refer their patients to me tells me I'm doing something right. I'm not screwing up their patients. They're trying to
Right.
undo
Sure.
work that I'm doing. So,
Well, it's healing.
mhm.
It's healing for people.
And then I also have such a good working relationship with them because I'm not a therapist. So I can refer back to when I see a client that I know, listen, this is my level. You need to go here now. So
Yeah.
I have a
that's
really I hope this isn't an off-putting question.
no,
Skeptics.
tons of them.
I've had weird things happen to me. We were talking about them a little while ago, unexplained kind of things, but I tend to dismiss it as
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's just crossing my mind. My memories are a little bit wrong or whatever. I come and find a way to justify that it's not something from beyond
Sure.
the grave, if you will. And yet Maria has shared with me some stuff and her like passion for what you do and everything. I'm sitting here right now and I get it. Like I feel like you genuinely believe that what you're doing is making a difference and the levels, everything you just talked about. Most people, I have to think a good chunk of people are skeptic and immediately say, no, it's not happening.
Hmm.
Like, how do you deal with that? Because you genuinely believe this is the thing that you're doing and you're helping people.
I feel like one of the things is I don't put myself out there, meaning I'm not advertising myself.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like a lot of the universe has put me there. Really, we started to talk about that before I came in. So the example would be this. I was working at Mercy Hospital when my office was above the morgue. So
Oh, jeez.
I was really picking up a lot there, not realizing my office was above the morgue. And then once the employees started finding out what I did, it was, "Can you have a party? Can you come?" So they kind of put me on the
Really?
map.
Okay.
They really kind of pushed me a little bit. And then we have a mutual friend who I feel like Noelle,
Yeah.
she had a massive contact and she was like, she pushed me in a direction and my world kind of blew up with her. And Teresa Caputo was hot on the circuit at the time, and the Scranton Times call and ask if they could do an article. So they did a full page article on Halloween in the life section. And I was working a full-time career just doing this part-time. And then my career went from full-time to part-time to this. And it was really and I didn't it just all kind of came, and I feel like that's how it's all been really word of mouth. I'd
Good for
say
you.
90% of my business and my following and everything has just been word of mouth. And I do believe you're asking that question. The people that are supposed to be in my light are the ones that aren't skeptic. Everybody comes in a little skeptical, but they won't show up if they'll just do a no show if they really are that skeptical.
So
So
you don't personally experience too much skepticism.
the only time I did was in the article. I was called a charlatan and all these wicked things at the time, people commenting. And that was hard because, like my mind, like you said, you picked up that passion. I'm like, what do you mean a charlatan? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like my friends and people who getting to know the community and the people, they were a little skeptical if I'm out to dinner with them, wondering, am I looking at their life until they
Yeah.
get to know me and know that I want my life too. So
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention to the skeptics. It
Yeah,
means
you
nothing
you
to me.
seem very settled
Yeah.
in what you're
Yeah.
doing. Do they ask you to like, what am I gonna order on the menu, Tara? Like, do they
I get a lot of lotteries. Can you predict the
Yeah,
lottery? I
yeah, yeah.
said, listen, if I could predict the lottery,
Yeah.
Is that a different like from what you described so far, you're not predicting the future, your experience, you're touching base with something that has occurred or someone
correct.
and connecting that for the current person. Is there prediction
Mhm.
there too?
There is. So some people will come to me and ask, they'll want guidance for their future. A lot of times when I get that, it's more probably I'll be able to see about a year to 3 years out with somebody. But I'm very careful because working in a medical field, I follow in my mind my own HIPAA. Though I'm not legally, I don't have any guideline for anything in the state or any license, but because of the medical profession, I do follow in my mind the HIPAA practice with my clients. So an example would be you come and you're having an affair and your wife comes in, and I may see you both as my clients,
Mhm.
but there's an ethical if she asks me, "Is my husband cheating on me?" and you're coming in, and I've had people come in with your lover, and then
Yeah.
your
I
wife
really
comes in.
appreciate you setting this example.
I know.
Not happening.
No.
But I've had situations like that where the spouse and the lover come together, and then the wife comes in, and
Oh my
you're in a
gosh.
love triangle situation, and the wife may say, "Is my husband cheating on me?" Some psychics would answer that. Some psychics will say, "Yes." Tell the person I don't have permission because they're not here. Even though
Mm,
I have permission because you came to me, but you're also paying me
Yeah.
separately. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
You're paying me for
Yeah.
my time, my
Yeah.
confidentiality. So some psychics will give you the dirt. I don't believe in that because there's a whole psychological aspect to that. Do you really want to know that? And what happens to your mental health and your mental state? I only know you for 1 hour. So what I say could be so damaging to people. So you have to be careful of that and interpretation. They'll record and I could say something and what I hear and connect to and how you interpret it could be two different things too. So you have to be really, really careful. That's the filter I was talking about earlier. What you say because it's interpretation.
Yeah. And you're dealing with lives, people's lives.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I'm curious what it feels like to get that message versus, a spirit conveying it to you.
So a lot of times if I'm doing my psychic work, 90% of the time if I'm giving future information, guidance, direction, 90% of that will come from their spirit and I will always touch
Mm,
base and I oftentimes will start out with a little bit of spirit so that they know I've got a connection even if they don't want it. I will still because I most of my information comes from spirit more than I don't know where else. So I
okay.
always like to kind of connect that a little bit because that's my safety net, knowing that I have that connection.
So you talked before about spirit guides for listeners who don't know what that is. Can you explain that a little bit? Is it like guardian angels?
Sure.
Mm.
So we all have guides, spirit guides with us, and there's about seven. So you have a main guide, which is your protector. You have a gatekeeper, who's another level of protection. You have a chemist guide, a physics, like a doctor guide. So you have a joy guide for happy spirits. So there's multiple guides that connect to you. I tend to work with my main guide and my gatekeeper. They will change in time too. So you have guides that come to you that are here to help you until you evolve to another place. And then you might get another guide that comes in. And you can feel like when you lose a guide and you're really tuned into them, you'll feel the energy shift a little bit and you'll feel it's kind of a neat experience, but it's also sad because I had a guide one time, her name was Catherine, and I was so connected to her, and then one day she was gone, like and I was like it felt like grief actually because I was so connected for so long, and then she
Oof.
was just poof. Yeah, exactly. So that was an interesting experience for the first time to have that.
Wow.
But guardian angels are different. I teach a class on that. So there's levels of angels, okay? And your guardians are assigned to you, okay? So your loved one could pass and be like we say our guardian, but they're not the assigned guardian angel to you. They're at the lowest level. And then you have your archangels, which are Michael and Raphael, and then it keeps going up and up and up to like Seraphim and all the way up it goes. But so guardian angels are here to protect us. They're assigned to us. Our spirit guides are often assigned to us as well. They come and go. Your guardian will stay with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've also heard that your guides can speak to you through other people
Hmm.
in certain situations. They can come to you, give you a message, and you may never see that person again, but it was exactly what you needed to hear at the exact right moment.
Yeah,
Is that,
absolutely.
yeah?
And I kind of feel like that could be more angelic. I call it there are people that walk this earth that I believe are earth angels. And I feel like they can deliver those messages. Sometimes, like you're pumping gas and you get a message. Sometimes I feel like that can be your angels, your guardian angels working with you a little bit too. So I do get those messages.
Is everyone intuitive?
Yes, everybody is born with psychic and intuitive abilities. It's just like back in the day, a radio when you had to fine tune the
Yeah, we
station.
were just
We
talking
were
about
just
that.
Yeah,
talking about
like
this.
like
Yeah.
literally fine tuning that station. So we all have it. You have to fine tune it. But it also is somebody who's born who can sing. I can't sing well. I think I can, but I can't. I sing great in the shower.
Yeah.
But or
I sang great in my
yeah.
Mini Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. In my car or you play the piano. I struggle to play. I love to play, but I'm not great at it. And some people can just naturally play. So we're all born with gifts, and sometimes we can learn it, and some are just naturally stronger at it. Numbers are your thing, right?
Mhm.
Like me,
Yeah.
math is not my thing. So,
Yeah.
that's your gift, not my
There's a ton.
gift.
We were just talking about that. I was sharing with Maria that there was a podcast I was listening to, and they were talking about a child who was hit in the head playing soccer at a game, and suddenly he could play the piano,
Mhm,
like a brilliant concerto kind of a piano player, and all of a sudden, and the guy described it exactly like his brain, whatever he was receiving, his
mhm,
antenna was at this frequency, and it got shifted, and
Mhm.
now he's picking up things that he never could pick up before.
100%.
It was interesting and way beyond my skill set.
And there's past lives. So we have souls. We'll talk about that for a minute.
Wait, can I just
Let's
Yes.
before you go
Yeah.
into the past lives, you're teaching some of this stuff. Like, how did you know that there are these different levels and there are this is a guardian angel and it's a spirit guide, things like that?
I
Is this a taught thing?
Yes. I mean, part of it's learning through channeling and just seeing what you see in your mind in your head. Like I'd love to be able to take my head and plop it into someone's head so that they could see their loved one. I mean, when I read somebody, I have clients that come once a week. I have clients that come once a month. I have clients that come once a year, every 6 months. And sometimes, when you're looking at their loved one, I would love to just take my head and put it in my mind and give
Yeah,
it to them so that they could see their child or they could see their loved one. And so just learning over the years, just in my own mind, how I could see things. And also, I've educated myself with my mentors. So if I'm teaching something, I want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm talking about, making sure that I'm not just flying off the cuff either. So
yeah.
I have educated myself a lot over the last decade plus 2 decades, maybe more.
Mhm.
Actually, now that I think about that,
Yeah.
I've had great mentors. A lot of them have passed away, and I feel very privileged for that because I have old school mediumship. It's new age today. So I have some really old school teachings, which I think gave me a great foundation of just the old ways of reading. So
Yes.
You seem like such a fun person.
She is.
I try to be.
She is. So let's talk about the business
Yes.
of this
Yes.
because this is a different kind of business.
Yes.
And I've heard people say, speaking of skeptics, well, if you're giving her your name ahead of time, she can do all this research online and she'll know everything about you before you get there. So let's talk about that for a second.
That's a big one. Okay, that's the stuff I have learned to overcome over the years. First of all, I'm a mom. I have 2 children. I have a husband. I have a house, and I read back to back all day. The last thing that I have time to do is type in somebody's name and look at whatever it is. And also, those who have come to me will know I never ask a question. I never ask you who you want. I tell you who's coming in. I never, I tell people all the time, don't tell me anything. Just tell me if you want spirit or future or a little bit of both, because then it's more authentic to you. If I ask you who you want, then I'm thinking. So I don't read well like that. I like to read very organically off the cuff. So if you tell me you want to speak to Billy, my dad, and then I'm now in my prayer and now I'm focused and I feel like now I'm thinking, I'm not reading. So
Mhm.
if I go in blind with you, then it's authentic to
Yeah,
me, authentic to you.
yeah,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So this for the skeptics out there,
Yeah.
I guess unless you have an experience, you really wouldn't know. And then there's the ethic. There are times I can't read people. There are times I can't get there in my head or it's blank. I've learned how to work with that over the
Is
years.
that just really boring people?
No, no. Sometimes I believe there's a couple things. Sometimes it's just where their level of grief is. Sometimes my guides protect me. So if I can get bits and pieces of a read, I know that it's not the right time for this person and I won't force it because one, you're paying me, and two, I know how my reads go. So you're going to get a choppy read. And you may never have had an experience, but ethically, I would never want to do that to you. So I will often offer them an opportunity to reschedule. If they paid me, I pay them back because I don't want to hold their money.
Mhm.
It's why.
Yeah.
And then if I can't see anything and it's a blank slate, I know my guides are telling me, don't read this person. There's going to be a problem. And so then I often will apologize. And if they paid, I'll pay them back. And I don't usually offer, but I will refer them to a colleague of mine sometimes because sometimes they may connect to it better than I did. So I
Mhm.
have to pay attention to the cues. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it
Yeah.
does.
but you don't wanna hurt the person who's sitting there. You have to be very careful about that, and I've only had a handful of people in my life who maybe they've booked a 30-minute appointment and they're like, "Can you go longer? Can you go longer?" And I have squeezed them in, and then they come back and they've blasted this is several years ago, they'll blast me on something, and I'll refund them. I don't my husband's like, "They know what they were getting, they know what the price was," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"No." I'm like, "It's tainted at that point. I don't want the energy of it."
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for me or you
Do you have folks like me that would probably sit in front of you and be like, "You're not gonna be able to get anything from me," and
all
blah,
the
blah, blah,
time.
and then walk out going, "Oh my gosh,
That
that was
happens
way more than I thought."
that happens a lot, or the person who comes in with massive expectations and maybe we're not getting all
Um,
of that. That's challenging too
yeah.
because I'm with you a half hour, 45 minutes and try to capture all of what your expectation is. Sometimes is tough because you can get a spirit who is really chatty and they're stuck in one lane on one and then you're so interested in what they have to say, but then you may walk out like, I didn't hear from this or that. That happens sometimes. I can't control that. I try to, but you will have people that will feel a little sometimes because they wanted to know this, that, and the other thing. Or their brother comes in and they get this killer of a read, and then the other sibling comes in and maybe they're not getting the same knock you off your seat kind of a read. And it has so many factors to it. Even if they're both skeptic, it's just sometimes
Mhm.
the energy of the spirit coming through and the messages to the person and the relationship. There's a lot of things.
Do you feel like they always get what they need even if it's not what they want?
I do. I feel spirit will always deliver something that, and even if they don't want to hear it at the time, when they play it back, oftentimes a year later, then it hits them. So
Mhm.
I don't really doubt myself in that
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
because I know my guides would shut me down if that person is really going to be a problem or truly disappointed.
Can you share some specific stories without violating,
Sure.
like I guess your version of HIPAA,
Well,
as
yeah,
you
because
said?
I
Yeah.
won't say names.
Mhm.
Yeah, like some where you really think this changed this person's direction or made them feel really good and it was sort of validated why they came to you?
There's several of them.
I'm sure there's a
I'm
bunch, but and
sure.
it
Yeah,
must be hard to pick 1 or 2 that you won't end up saying something that gives that person away.
sure. So this person passed away about a year ago or so, but I really think she was an elderly client of mine, and her husband passed away, and she had all boys. So she had 5 sons, and they lived out in the Midwest here locally, and she had an aide with her too. And she saw my article in the paper, so she's been a longstanding client of mine. And she came in again, her husband passed. I read him, and then she kept wanting to come back like once a month. She would come back. And initially, when she first started coming to me, we had this great connection. We always did. And then her sons were kind of like, and I don't blame them. I mean, this woman's coming to some lady and she wants to come once a month, right? So he comes in from out Midwest, comes in for a reading, and then all the other kids start to come in except for one son, actually two sons. But it was just kind of interesting because he had to actually, and I didn't know they were her sons because her last name and their last name, she had some stepsons too. But it was kind of interesting because you had to prove to the family. I'm not some quack over here just hosing your mom and taking her money, right? And so she got to the point where she ended up getting ill and she couldn't come, but she knew like it was just like her thing. So I would make an appointment once a month to come to her house and read her until the point where she just, I said to the family, I said, as much as I love her, I'll go visit her. But at this point, she's not retaining what I'm saying. She's not recording what I'm saying at this point, and I just ethically didn't feel like so I did go visit her. I brought her flowers and stuff like that a couple times, and she knew she could recognize me. And every now and then we talked to her husband, but it was more in kind at that point. And then there's another one that just made me think. I call her my love letters from beyond the grave lady. So she is passed as well, but she came in one time, loved her to death, and her husband had passed and they had been married. Kind of one of those war stories. Like he went off to Nam and he kind of like locked eyes and they came back and they married and had a family and loved her family. And she comes in with these letters. And they weren't letters from him to her. They were letters from this other woman when he was away at war and sending him to
Oh,
the
no.
yeah. So this was really tough because she wanted to know all about this and not knowing this other woman. And then she sent a picture of this baby, that the woman was holding. And she's like, I know this is my husband's child. And she wanted to come here and move here from the country she was in. And it was so complicated because you're sitting here, and this is a fine line because this woman's in her 80s. She just lost her husband. And here's the thing about this whole scenario. He said to her, I have something to tell you the day he dies. I have something to tell you. And they were sitting at the table. And then he said, I'm going to go to the store. And she said to him, if you don't tell me now, you're never going to tell me. He goes to the grocery store, falls down, ends up in the hospital, and then dies.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he never, and she always wondered, was that what he was going to tell her? And so I would see her a lot. And then she started to write a book of like her life and the whole story. And I mean, I had their whole history of from the day they met to their wedding and all the things that she thought in between. And she thought many times that he cheated on her throughout the course of the marriage. And that's hard because you're trying very hard to not break this woman's heart. Even if I saw it, she got to the point that she knew me so well that she would say, "You're not telling me everything." Like, she
Oh,
goes,
wow.
"You will clear your throat when you're holding something back."
Oh, was she a poker
She knew
player?
your tell.
She knew my towel. It was so, but, and I got close to her and I got close to her family, and she was another one that got to the point where she couldn't come to the office, but it was another situation where at this point, I'm not charging her. I mean, but it was like I felt like I was her connection to her husband, and she was going through so much grief of losing him, but then the grief of these letters. And I feel like they haunted her to the day she died.
Uh,
And trying to bring that balance and that closure and
Yeah.
try to also bring the love to that situation and to try to bring her back to what that foundation was versus all the nonsense that came in between, that's sometimes what you do. And you talk about trying to make a difference in people's lives. Those were, or parents, like I said, that have lost their children and the special relationships and connections that you build with these people over grief. I have a lot of people that I've connected to over the years and people who've taken me to the places and the sites, where they're, secret, they're very vulnerable with me. And I have to make sure that I'm respecting those boundaries and letting them be vulnerable with me because you're dealing with really private moments or things that they'll share that they never tell anybody. That's a lot of what I do.
one is like a movie,
I
isn't
know it
it?
really is.
Yeah.
I want to write a book.
Wow.
I feel like I want to share a story with you, but I don't want to
Oh, I want to hear it.
say.
Yes, come on. Listen, if you're going to be vulnerable with anybody, go ahead, right?
Yes,
I I
exactly.
just told Maria about this before you got here. It was, when I was a freshman in high school, or excuse me, freshman in college. It was a family friend, not a relative, just a girl a year older than me. Her name was Cheryl, and she, kinda grew up together. We see each other twice a year or something, but she was a super sweet girl, and she was engaged. She was a junior in college, I think, and she was engaged, living with her fiancé in mom's basement, and her parents had been split up, and dad lived on the other side of town. She was coming she got hit by an oncoming car. I think it was a drug user, and, she did everything she could to get off the road, and they hit her. I remember taking it very hard, and, the story that always will never leave me is that when she apparently, her fiancé, they were the whole family was this was a shock, and one night he couldn't sleep shortly after, right after the event, and he came upstairs for a drink in the middle of the night to get a drink of something, and her mother came out of the bedroom and said, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And he's, "I just had this unbelievable dream. It's really got me shaken up." He told her about it, and I think they cried together. And then the next day, he's still so shaken up. He went across town and talked to her father, and he said, "Well, tell me about the dream." And the dream was that there was a knock on the door. He went out to the front door, and she was out on the sidewalk, and they were both crying. And she was saying, "What happened?" And he said, "You were in an accident." She didn't remember anything of it, but he said, "What really got me shaken up is her whole left side was scarred and damaged and everything." And then the father, when he heard that, he lost it
Mhm.
because he was the only one that went to the station or to the hospital and identified her, and she was hit on the left side, and
Mm.
she was how he described in the dream. That I still get goosebumps when I
Yeah.
say that because I don't know how to explain that.
So that is a dream visitation that he received from her. And not everybody gets it. And people get so frustrated because maybe someone will get one and someone in the family won't, or nobody gets them and everybody wants them.
My mom wanted one
Yeah.
for my dad,
Yeah.
and she's pissed about
Yeah.
Uh,
And so, I
it.
mean, people get very upset about that.
Uh,
And I often find in this situation, it was tragic. It was a trauma to the whole family, but every grief is really. But he obviously was so restless and she was so connected to him that, she's not saying anything. Like, I feel like his interpretation of her saying what happened, like she appeared to him to let him know that it was real because, his subconscious mind might have been grief stricken with knowing that she's gone, but not really believing it and really wrestling with it,
mm,
trying to get the reality of that because she came in the form to show him. They don't often say anything when a dream visitation comes in. I mean, maybe very little, but their presence is letting that person know I'm
yeah,
over here. This is true, or I'm okay, or whatever we need to see. Oftentimes that will come through, but not everybody gets it. Maybe an eighth of the population will get a dream visitation. And I often would educate people. There's so many things. Our veil, our grief oftentimes will create a wall. Spirit will always be around us. But if we're heavily grief stricken, they're like, where's my loved one? Why can't I feel them? Where are they? But if we're really depressed or we have a lot of grief, they're there, but we can't feel them. It's our wall. Does that make sense?
mm,
But the more open we become, the closer we feel. And as spirit evolve and heal on the other side, and we feel that, we can try to evolve with them, but if we're stuck in our own state and they're evolving, then we often feel like there's a disconnect. Does that make sense?
mhm.
everything you say makes sense. It's still,
It's
yeah,
not
it's just,
logic, right? Because
yeah,
there's no,
it's
because you
not
can't see it.
tangible. Some stuff,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a lot of faith based
It
stuff,
is.
right? It really is. I when my father passed away, he was just a magnanimous guy. Just left a huge void because he was so
Well,
big.
don't say anything. Maybe someday I'll read you and I'll
Oh,
be able to give you some nice information on that. So listen,
Oh.
I mean, as much as I'd like to say something, don't right
yeah.
now because I'll give you messages. But the less I know, the better off it is.
Aw.
Yeah.
Zoop.
Exactly. No, I'd love to
Actually,
hear
thank you. I
I
don't
would
really
love
want
to hear about him, but I feel
to.
like
No, it's
I
good to.
would like to connect to him on a different level
Yeah,
so that
that's great.
you have that experience.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does. Yeah.
So I listened to a podcast with Dr. Tara Swart, I think is her last name, and she's a doctor of neuropsychology, I believe, with Diary of a CEO, our guy we love to listen to. And she wrote a book called Signs. Now she's coming from a neuroscience perspective, but her husband passed away. And she was talking about this book that she wrote, how he was sending her signs, and how what she has come to understand is that after people pass, they have to learn how to communicate back
Yes.
because it's not like speaking and it's not necessarily English.
Mhm.
It's a different form of communication and we can learn how to receive that communication, but they also have to learn how to deliver it. Is that
That is correct. So if you were to read my website, I always recommend 6 months for a couple of reasons. People will come the week of, the 2 weeks after, but there's lots of reasons why I say 6 months because one, your grief. Okay, so I have to get through your barrier of grief to get to a channel. Two, everybody wants to know their loved one's okay. But what I'm saying, you're not going to retain half of what I'm saying because you're just in a state of shock yourself. And that it's like talking to a newborn over there. So when they recently go over there, that's why my guides can interpret and translate it, but if I don't have the help of my guides, I can't understand what they're trying to say because they too have to, their time and our time is different. There isn't 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they don't know they've been gone 6 months or 2 weeks or 5 years. Time doesn't exist. Numbers don't exist over there, which makes it tricky because we talk about how they connect to our numbers here, which they do because we're in a numbers world.
like angel numbers?
Right. Because if I call it a volley. So if we start to connect to 444 and then we recognize, okay, my dad's bringing me that or whoever, we'll acknowledge it in our mind and then they'll keep bringing it back. But when we stop, then they stop. Does that make sense? So I call it a spirit volley. So when they give you a sign and it's something that's easily repetitive and we say in our mind, hello, mom, hello, dad, they often will keep bringing that to you. But if we don't believe it or we don't acknowledge it, then it comes once and stops. And maybe it may come randomly a couple months later. But the logical side of the human is really to have the disbelief of it because we're
Mhm.
not conditioned to believe. But like I said, evolution, the veil, we're more inclined to be like, could that really be? Or when somebody passes and people see the shadows, they take the double take. Yes, they're
Yeah.
seeing it, but in our minds, we're because our ego, see, this is a whole class I teach. Our ego is there to protect us, but our ego is also there to give us doubt. So we
Mhm.
have to retrain our right left side brain to be able to believe that, we really did see that versus the ego saying no.
Because there may not be hard evidence. You may
Correct.
not ever be able to find hard evidence.
Correct. Now, a lot of
It's a
times
knowing, right?
exactly. And now with digital camera and us being able to take pictures all the time, you will see more orbs. Our ring cameras pick up a lot more or blinks or whatever we have. So we're able to actually have more scientific proof of things because our technology is actually capturing things that we wouldn't have got, years ago with a Polaroid. Maybe we would have gotten an orb, but we would have thought it was a film or error in the film when really that was probably some of it could have been.
Energy.
Yeah, it could have been, but we just didn't see it then, or it just was bad developing.
So could you ask your loved ones for signs?
You can, but there's no guarantee. So
Mhm.
here's the thing about spirit that's so tricky. So if you're asking your spirit for something specific, they often tend to come in when they want to come in and give you the information. So I'll give you a great example. One day I was painting a room and I was like, oh, I'll do this freehand. Don't know why I was thinking that. I'm not a painter. And it wasn't going so great when I got to the ceiling and
Oh yeah.
the top of the edge. And I was like, and I heard my dad just out of nowhere, and he's like, "Stop. Just take a look at what you're doing. Go get the tape and do it right." And I was so mad because I'm like, "No, I'm free." I'm arguing with my father in my head back and forth. But he was right, and I went and got the tape, and then it ended up turning out fine. But he's like, "You're making a mess." It was just like I wasn't looking for his advice at that moment, but
Right.
that's how they come. And so when you hear that spirit come through, it sounds like a narration in your mind. It can be your voice or their voice, okay? Now we're talking about sounds like schizophrenia, right?
No,
But
no, because I've heard this, like,
mhm.
these messages come sounding like your
Yes,
voice.
yes. So, I mean, there is a
Mhm.
fine line between schizophrenia and what you do as a medium.
That's what this
Yes,
doctor was talking
yes,
about on the podcast too.
yes.
Yeah.
So, there's a very fine line of, when we talk about voices, quote unquote, I'm air quoting here, in our head because there's the narration. Okay, and it will sound like a narration. Like as if what somebody like Morgan Freeman were narrating something. Do you know what I mean? That's the best example. Like it's not Morgan Freeman, but
Yeah, that'd be a good one to have.
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
you'll hear that. So again, it could be the voice of your loved one or your voice, but I know the difference because I know when my thoughts are my thoughts and when I hear it, plus other spirits talk all the time. So I've become very skilled at the
Discerning.
voices the
Yeah.
voices in my head, right? But when your spirits come through, you could tell it's a very clear message. It's a very clear. I always teach people to practice your guides or your loved ones. So the best way to develop that would be to trust that intuition. So you're driving and you hear go left, but you keep going straight and you pass it and you have to turn around and go back. That's you're being told what to do. But we often, our ego side, we ignore it. But if we started listening to that more often, it will always take us in the right path. So if we listen to that voice go left, we should be going left, but
That
we
sounds
don't.
like every vacation I've taken with my wife.
But
Go
truly,
left.
No, but
No,
I've
go
been trying.
straight.
I've actually been trying this.
Okay.
And I can kind of I don't know until way later that oh yeah, that one was
mhm,
right. But I almost don't know because I had this thought recently.
mhm,
You don't know if it was right unless you went wrong.
right.
So
But
it's you know what I'm saying?
well,
So
that's
like if you
because
did begin to follow it, you don't know if it's that or if it's you because you didn't actually do something wrong.
see, that's the ego side of your brain
Trying
making
to
you
rationalize
yes,
it?
exactly,
Yeah.
rationalize and make you doubt. So when you start to follow that, I call it that rule,
Yeah.
okay, and you start to go with that first. And of course, we're humans, so we're going to defy what we think versus what we hear because
Yeah.
that's how we're built. But when you start to really go, you become more in tune to your channel. You become more psychically, you're developing. Does that make sense? And I would start with little things like directions Or you're shopping and you want this shirt and then you say to yourself, okay, if it's there and I come back, it's meant to be mine. You hear that and you go back and it's gone. Well, you weren't supposed to have it, right? But try little things like that. Don't try grandiose things, because you have to really learn to do technique and concentration in your brain to hone in on all that. It's a whole process of like developing your brain and learning to concentrate and learning to do mini meditations versus hour-long meditations, because if we're not designed to do hour-long meditations, like, unless you're, in a monastery or something,
Mhm.
our brain is way too active,
I hear that.
you
I
know,
definitely feel that one.
and
Yeah.
somebody who has an overactive brain really can't sit through a half hour, 45-minute meditation without thinking 1,000 things, because and it's not wrong, but you just have to learn to chunk it differently. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
train the brain differently.
Yeah. So fascinating.
I feel I could probably easily talk for twice this time. I've never this is such a different podcast than we've done. It's super intriguing to me, and, to be being very vulnerable and candid about it, I feel very much like you described yourself earlier. Like, I feel like I have a faith and a religion, and I always think I could be better at it, and I feel wrong, or I'm doing something that I shouldn't doing talking about this, but yet
Sure.
I've had some odd things that make me why can't they coexist?
Well, they did back when I talked about the Rumi Sufi kind of. That's, if you know who Rumi is.
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's like an ancient philosopher.
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
that
To
case, I
me?
do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they did coexist until the control of the mind, the control of the masses, however you want to say it, to come through. People did. They prayed to gods, they prayed to goddesses, they prayed,
To the sun, to
the
the
sun,
moon, the
everything.
stars. Yeah.
Exactly. Eagles. Like they use the artifacts of the world around them as narration of, what they prayed to. So
Yeah.
I think, and then everything shifts and then everything breaks down. And that's what I was giving you that example of the veil and the kids
Yeah.
and and just the energy, because again, we are so conditioned. And again, I believe in God. I go to church. Like I still have my faith, but I've learned to coexist with two worlds. But it was hard. It's still a struggle for me,
Mhm.
because
Interesting.
and I still get people coming in my office every day like, "Is this wrong?" And I have lots of artifacts in my office of things I've connected to. So I have the Prague, I have rosary beads, I have Buddha, I have, because it does give my clients comfort. And I have those things because I connect to those things. I don't just put them as a prop. I put them because I've connected to them through people who've sent me gifts from other parts of the world or whatever that is. So they have meaning to me and I understand what that is. I'm not just going to put up something on my shelf because it looks good. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? It
Yeah.
has to have value.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're helping people. Like, people are coming to and they're hoping for this or that, or maybe they're skeptical, but at the end of the day, many of them are walking out with a much better
Yeah.
feeling. And kudos to you
Oh,
for
thank you.
doing that. And you've rolled it into a business, right?
I
And
have.
now this is a business you can't really scale, right? I
No,
mean, it's all right tied to you directly.
it is. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is me. And there are other pieces. You talk about helping people. I've done missing persons. I've done funerals.
Really?
I've officiated weddings. And so I won't do a lot of funerals or weddings, but I will for my clients. I will for people close to me because it is very time consuming. It does take a lot, but I've done wineries, I've done haunted mansions, I've done beaches, I've been all over with people. So that's a great experience. And then I've had clients that I've been close to where I have done their funerals and, the family has asked. So to me, again, you question, is it right or wrong? When a family comes to me in their saddest time and asks me to do something for them,
Yeah.
that's an honor for me. I know that sounds twisted, but I feel like I know I did something right for that
Yeah.
person while they were here on the earth.
That's great.
It's like spiritual healing. We go for physical healing, we
Hmm.
go to therapists for mental
Hmm.
healing and emotional healing. This
Yeah.
is like spiritual healing, and we are spirits. We're spiritual beings.
And you talk about the business piece, and the thing that I'm a firm believer in is that business share. And like I said, I will refer people to therapists. I will refer people to, massage, therapists or Reiki practitioners. Like I am all about, I'm just one person.
Mhm.
So the more I can share other people's gifts to help that person, I've done that on my Facebook page. I've had people come on and we've talked live about their business. So it's not always about me. I feel like I'm a conduit to other people too.
Oh,
Oh, you're the best, Tara.
yeah,
Any
thank you
other?
so much for coming.
Yes. Well, I am honored that you both had me, and I know that was a lot.
That was great. It
So,
was
Perfect.
yes,
yeah.
thank you so much.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Beyond the Bottom Line. Thank you for listening. If this conversation sparked something for you, please let us know. Follow, share, or leave a review. It helps us keep having the conversations we love that you love to listen to. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more real talk from real leaders. Until then, here's to feeling successful beyond the bottom line.